Alright, so Mission Impossible 8 or Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, whatever you want to call it, was better than I expected it to be. But even with it being better than I expected it to be, it still has its fair share of problems. It's definitely one of the weaker ones of the Mission Impossible franchise. Now, before I talk about this movie, I think it's only appropriate that I talk about the part 1 of this movie. Now, I actually reviewed this movie in a separate episode, so if you want to definitely see that, then go ahead and check that out if you want some further thoughts on it. But for right now, I'll just give a brief little synopsis. Overall, I really did not enjoy this movie all that much and just felt that a lot of it was stretched out and unnecessary, kind of just leading to the next movie and leaving a lot unanswered. And overall, the fact that this movie was so stretched out is the exact opposite that this movie has. Right from the beginning, this movie is just basically trying to force all exposition down your throat and force a bunch of emotions on you. It was about 30 minutes into the movie until it actually felt like it was beginning to flow at a much more natural pace. A lot of the things that they shove into this movie and try to force in the first 30 minutes of it are just very weird to me and just confused why they did it. What I mean by that is the things like the Doomsday cult that worships the entity, that honestly should have just been introduced at the beginning of the first movie or something, and it doesn't feel like it should have to be forced into this one, especially considering the fact that the first movie was just so boring and so little happened in it. Now, as I said earlier, it did begin to flow in a much more natural pace and felt better after a while. Now, a common complaint that I have with this movie and other Mission Impossible movies is that sometimes the music can be incredibly overbearing at times, and in other Mission Impossible movies it doesn't really stick out to me that much or really detract too much from my experience, but from this one there were a lot of scenes where it just felt overused and over-empowering. Now, the actual story of this movie is just kind of straightforward. It takes a different approach from the different Mission Impossible movies. Those movies focused a lot on the action set pieces to really keep you engaged. This one decides to be a little bit more like the first one, try to be a little bit more of a classic spy movie, which is definitely better done in this movie than the first part of this movie, but still doesn't really reach the highest of the Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout in my opinion. I also found the attempts at comedy in this movie not all that well done. Some of it ranged from kind of cringy and awkward to kind of just not funny and missing the mark. And I don't really think many points of this movie got a genuine laugh out of me aside from one joke near the end of the movie. Now, another thing that really bugged me about this movie is the fact that they tried to accumulate a bunch of aspects from the first movies and tried to introduce the idea that all of it was leading to this certain point. And anyone who is slightly familiar with any of the Mission Impossible movies knows for the most part that each movie has its own individual thing and doesn't really connect with it all that well. It just felt incredibly awkward that they were trying to force all these story elements into it. Minor spoilers for the third movie, but the rabbit foot kind of thing, weapon, whatever it was just very basic code or the beta version of the actual entity in and of itself. But if it was nothing but code, then why does it have a bioseal on it? It was just very clearly not well thought out at all, and it just felt very forced that they were trying to act like it was all building to this or whatever. Another distracting element is that they brought back the character from the very first movie who was the CIA agent who worked in the Black Vault or whatever it was, the vault that Tom Cruise breaks into. They bring him back for this movie and try to act as if he's important at all, but he's just really pointless and in all honesty just kind of showing a bit of nostalgia forced onto it. Come to think of it, a lot of the side characters in this movie are just kind of pointless and forgettable, to be perfectly honest. Now, there are a few spoiler elements in this movie that I really want to talk about, so if you want to avoid spoilers then skip to this part in the video. So later near the end of the movie, where the president's trying to make the decision of whether or not to send nuclear weapons to other countries to destroy them to cause a preemptive strike against the entity, when they're planning this whole event, the advisors advise them to sacrifice one of their own cities alongside them to show a sign of peace or whatever, which is so incredibly stupid and ironic, and there's no way anybody would actually think that. Like, if I'm a foreign leader that just got its country nuked by the US, I don't give a damn how many cities of theirs it nuked. Still doesn't change the fact that they committed a crime against me. So yeah, that part of the movie was really dumb. But what's also really dumb is near the end of the movie where a bunch of characters are trying to disarm a bomb. The CIA agent from the first one says that he is able to disarm the bomb with his wife, and then that random guy just decides, oh, I'm just going to stand out here even though I have nothing to do in the vault and just try to disarm the bomb with them and die in the process probably. Why don't you just go into the vault? Who cares if you don't have anything to do in there? Just save yourself, for goodness sakes. The guy very clearly said that him and his wife could handle this. There's no reason for you to stick around. And not to mention, when they're trying to disarm the bomb, there's a chase scene happening between Tom Cruise and the villain of the movie, which is basically the exact same ending to the movie Fallout. It was so incredibly repetitive and rehashed, and not to mention this whole sequence just goes on for way too long. In Fallout, it was much better delivered in terms of its rising tension throughout that scene, but in this one it just goes on for way too long and really overstays its welcome. And another thing that I was really disappointed by this movie, the fact that they tried to build up so much finality and introduce the idea that so many things culminate throughout all the movies to this one movie and just try to force all that down your throat. The way that this movie ends is no different from any of the other Mission Impossible movies. It doesn't really feel like a whole cinematic final journey and that this is the final part of the story. They kind of just toyed with those emotions for a little bit and then just decided that they were going to leave the door open to make more movies. And also, they forgot to tie up a lot of loose ends in this movie. Whatever happened to that doomsday entity cult that was just shown out throughout the film? It feels in the end as if they never really addressed it. Now, overall, this movie wasn't terrible and it was definitely better than the first part of this movie. Would I recommend it to people? Yes, I would recommend it, as it's probably going to be the last Mission Impossible movie, maybe. And just to kind of finish up the series or whatnot. As for me, I don't ever really plan on watching this movie again. Definitely check out Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout if you haven't already. When I came out of the theater watching this movie, I decided it deserved a 6, but now going over it, I think it just kind of deserves a 5. Not terrible overall, but definitely not amazing. So there it is, 5 out of 10, kind of forgettable, but whatever, 5 out of 10.